Hi, this is David Odell with Odell Complete Concrete. I'm going to show you the basic setup technique for this backyard. Here's what we have when I arrived. This is a new townhouse, and this is the grade that was left here. And they had one drain over here, and that's where they ended it right. Here's the last drain. This is what it looks like afterwards. We stamped it with Roman slate texture, and this was just after pressure washing. So this concrete's gonna dry out a lot lighter because we use the integral color mix. So it's gonna take a good 60 days for this to get to its real color, which will be a lot lighter. The two-tone will come out a lot more at that point because there is a secondary color on there which doesn't lighten, but the base will lighten. So then the two-tone will start to show as the concrete lightens up. So here we are in the demo. We took out the small stoop that's required to get your so you can actually move in and live in it. You have to have a 3x3 out the doors, so that's coming out. I think they had a piece of rebar stubbed in there out of the foundation. Maybe they didn't in this one. I don't think they did. They had felt, actually, which I don't know why on that little 3x3, but they did anyway. So anyway, this property next to it is about a foot higher than the property I'm working on, and they got a vinyl fence here, and then the dirt is just sloped from the bottom of that vinyl fence down a good 6 inches. So it's like a berm of dirt. So I gotta dig that out, and I'm gonna put a curb in there. We had a lot of rain, and the rain and the mud just started flowing down through the backyards, and it ended up in this yard. So I'm putting a curb, a concrete curb along there to try to retain some of that from the other yards. Also, we're digging in, we're continuing that existing drain line because they stopped it right there. So I'm going to bring it all the way around this, all the way around to the other side of the house, and then I'm going to hook up these downspouts also to the drain, underground drain. 3-inch diameter drain connected to the downspouts, and I'll have 3 area drain locations also in the new concrete. Also, we're going to be burying a 1-inch conduit for future stuff. He may pull some 220 back here or something for a jacuzzi in the future. So we're going to put the conduit under there so it's there ready to pull wires through later on. Also, we're going to have a small planter along this wall, so we brought a water supply from the back hose bib. We just went down with a valve and then over and popped it up in the planter bed. So we also brought up our electrical in the planter bed, so you can actually, whoever runs the electric, does the electrical, they can actually put an outlet. They can hook up a timer there, and then it also goes over to where the jacuzzi location will be. So this is the beginning of the 1-inch conduit. There's going to be concrete over the top of all this. That's where the end of the 4-inch drain. They had a 4-inch drain here that just ended right there. I'm going to continue it. I'm going to reduce it to a 3-inch at this point and go all the way around. Here's your 1-inch. It's right underneath the electrical outlet. That'll go up and possibly tie into the panel at some point. I'm going to have a couple steps here. The garage door is a lot lower than the house, so instead of having steps out of the back door, multiple steps, we'll just have a couple steps on the side yard. not only that, if I were to try to dig out the backyard down and get it level with the garage floor, it'd have a drainage problem. Then it'd be a lot lower than the next lot next to it, and we'd probably be exposing footings of block walls and houses and stuff. So this is how it has to be done in this particular case. Here's your tees, and that'll be cut later, and put an area drain on there once I decide on the grade. Now I just unscrew the downspout elbow. Now what I have to do here is I'm using the coupling that's built into the pipe is actually the perfect size to go around a downspout without having to buy a downspout adapter, and it fits nice and snug, as you'll see in a minute here. And there it is. I just tried it without the coupling and it doesn't fit. Now I'm gonna get use the drain pipe coupling. Here we go. There, it went on really nicely and easily. That strap that's on the wall won't be needed anymore, because once the conduit goes around this pipe, that downspout can't move. There's your reducer right down there, right off of the end of that 4-inch. Now I'm at a 3-inch pipe. So we checked the pipe with just a 2-foot level, or you can use a 4-foot, whatever you happen to have. But we have slope in all the pipe all the way out to the front. This is the glue I use right here. Works great for the conduit. It's perf PVC. They have a gray glue for conduit, but this blue glue works just fine. This is an easy way to cut pipe. It's a pipe cutter. It's like a big pair of scissors, basically. So I just use a 4-inch wide trenching shovel. That way I minimize the area that of dirt that I'm disturbing. So I space these drains out in a way that we can drain everything from each side of the house to the actual drain. So I divided these areas into 2 sections, actually 3 sections here. There's the back section, this narrow area, then there's a little bit bigger area, which is another section. So I put these area drains, I just centered them in all 3 sections. There's the side of the house as well that I split it the difference and centered it. So this is where the conduit goes over to the wall in the planter bed, and then once that does that, we drop another conduit next to it that goes over to where the jacuzzi might be in the future. Here's the level. Make sure we have slope on the pipe. Now I had to tee over at this point to get my area drain centered in this next section. And so at that tee, it's going to continue around to the side yard. And then we'll have one more drain in the middle. So we'll have a total of actually 4 drains on this particular project. Now we've continued one more conduit from the planter to this location over here in the corner. And that'll be probably behind the jacuzzi, or you could even have a barbecue island here. Whatever you want to put here will be fine. And everything's underground already. The only thing you'd be lacking is, here's the water here. The valve that I put in for future irrigation for the small planter, maybe some drips or something like that. Drip hose for potted plants or whatever you decide to put in here. I think it's going to be about an 18-inch wide planter bed here for about 12 feet long or so. So basically what I do is I pressure test everything before I actually pour the concrete over it, and I leave it under pressure during the whole process just in case it gets hit or disturbed. We'll know it, you know, and then we can fix it before the concrete goes over the top. That's important to do, to keep everything under pressure when you're doing concrete work. Because it's pretty easy to drive a stake through a pipe and not know it if it's not under pressure, and then you pour the concrete and then you turn the water on, and then you got water coming out all over the place, which means you got to start removing concrete at that point. So I like to leave everything under pressure. Since these are new townhouses, normally what I found is in any of these new job sites, there's been a lot of dirt movement, leveling and adding dirt. So a lot of times it's not going to be that compacted as, say, a house that's already been sitting for about 60 years or 50 years. It takes, from my experience, about a good 20 years for a house to really settle. So what I'm going to do here in this situation, because it's a new one, I'm going to put felt along the house, so that way if that house is settling or anything is still moving, it can do that without damaging the outside concrete. So a lot of the houses I work on are a lot older ones, so they've already, everything around it's already settled, the dirt is settled, and a lot of times you don't need the expansion felt unless you're really doing some really large slabs, and then it's just nice to have it. They're gonna all, these big slabs kind of move independently. In this case here, matter of fact, on this particular job, after we did all this setup, we got a lot of rain down here in California. A lot of rain, and what happened was, with all that rain that came down through these backyards, a lot of sinkholes appeared. I came back here after it had rained, and there was a lot of holes, like, you know, a foot deep here and there, all around the yard, in the front yards, side yards, because, like I said, a lot of stuff doesn't get compacted that well, and then when you get flooding, it really finds the holes. So as you can see, yeah, the dirt definitely wasn't settled until we got like 4 or 5 inches of rain. Though the block wall is a fairly new block wall, and it appears to be level. So we can use that as a reference point to establish our grades for the new concrete. And let's see, I think I did break out my laser level on this one at some point. I found that there's a little difference in this house, in the weep screed anyway, about a ½ inch from one end to the other. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go about a ½ inch below the weep screed of the house, because you gotta have a little air underneath the stucco, because there's holes in the metal weep screed under that holds the stucco up, and those little holes weep water basically out if any water gets into the stucco itself. So you got to have that space so the water can come out. Otherwise, you're going to get a lot of stucco damage, water damage. What happens when you get water in stucco that can't come out? It starts blistering the paint. The stucco starts getting really weak and then starts coming apart. So we'll run the plate compactor over all this, try to get it as tight as we can. So here's the along the fence where we're going to be building a curb. Establishing the grade was fairly easy here because we knew we wanted to be a ½ inch below the weep screed, and we wanted slope to the drain, so basically we needed about 4½ inches below the weep screed. That gives us 4 inches of concrete and a ½ inch below. So to the drain we went another inch from that, and that was the grade. Real simple. Yeah, and over here, I think we found a sewer clean out. It was a 4-inch. We had to cut that down and put a collar around it, removable lid. Here's the footings for the vinyl fence. They were up kind of high. Once we started trying to get down below the weep screed, we found that these footings were actually higher than the weep screed of the house, so we had to encase them in concrete in the curb itself. And we're pulling out a line from our established grade marks on our drains, and we're checking elevation. Here's the sewer clean out that I'm going to have to cut off, lower, and collar it. Sewer clean out was up at probably floor height, so we had to drop her down a few inches. So I'm going to end up with a 6-inch curb here, and that'll put the top of curb at the bottom of that vinyl fence, which is the top of the dirt on the adjoining yard. And then the bottom of that 2x6 will be my elevation for this yard. And that should help hold back the water and mud and everything that was coming down the hill. I slipped in a few stackables also behind that air conditioner because the mud was coming in there and getting into the base of the air conditioner. So I'm hoping those stack stones will hold that back a little bit. When I set those stackable stones there, I actually set them. I threw a little bit of concrete down on the bottom and stuck them to that. That way they wouldn't move with the pressure and get into the air conditioner. Here we go with the plate compactor, flattening it out, breaking it up, and getting it tight. So I use some steel stakes on this curb. I like to use steel when I'm dealing with pulling it while the concrete's wet and finishing it, because I have smaller holes to deal with than using the wood stakes, and they're easier to pull out of dirt. I had to do a few modifications to these couplings. My drains weren't very deep, so I cut the coupling, split the coupling so I could get it down low enough. Those couplings eat up about 3 inches of space by themselves, so you can take them down a little bit if need be. So that's what I did. My where the end of that drain, that 4-inch was, it wasn't really that deep, and I had to bring it all the way around. So we got up kind of to the top pretty quickly. Here's the air conditioner. You can see the mud that was pouring in from the adjoining property, but I think that's going to shut that down, this curb, those stackables. I just went with a 4-inch wide curb in this situation because these backyards pretty small already. I didn't want to eat up space. We're going to lay some rebar in here on about 2-foot centers, 3/8 rebar. Oh yeah, this was, let's see. Okay, we just had a little bit of the after the rain, and now we're back to before the rain. Oh, this is after the rain. This is a couple weeks after we got a lot of rain, and there was some settling. Some of the pipes actually floated out of the dirt because of all the water. So we had to re-dig some of these pipes back into the ground. Right here you can see how this dirt looks a little wet. This dirt's really wet underneath because it's a clay. Like, it basically was backfilled with some clay type soil. And all the water got down underneath that pipe and it floated it right up because it wasn't that deep to begin with. Anyway, we dug it back in, got it back at the right grade. The nice thing about all that rain is it settled all the pipe trenches. And I'm going to go with some steel stakes again here. That way minimizes the hole size in the concrete when I go to strip it wet. using some foam for an expansion around on the sides of the house, and on both sides I used foam. In the rear I used some half-inch paper underneath the weep screed. So these treads are going to be 12-inch, the height 6-inch. So we have a total of 12 inches from the top to the garage floor level. So I nailed a couple cleats on there just to keep my 12-inch spacing nice and tight and secure when the concrete hits it. Now I'm checking from the bottom of that riser out here to the front to make sure I've got slope. And we didn't, because the footings on these vinyl fences we found were high again. The vinyl was just about the same. The footing for the vinyl fences were about the same level as the garage floor elevation. So I had to do some, tricky stuff to make that work. Anyway, thanks for watching the video. Have a nice day. If you have any questions or comments, don't hesitate to contact me. Stay tuned for part 2, the stamped concrete finished product.